Welcome, Christian Warriors. We have a shooting to talk about that happened this past weekend in Norfolk at a funeral that spilled over into the church next door to where the funeral was. And shootings at funerals are pretty common. And I want to talk to you about what happened, and then just like everything else that will always tell you what you can do to keep your church safe during a funeral, how you can look for some of the danger clues that you might have a problem at a funeral. It's shocking that there is so much violence at funerals, but we need to talk about it. You can see my background is a little bit different today. I'll let you guys know that for the month of July, I am going to be going through some medical treatments for a brain injury and PTSD at the same time. So I'm at this beautiful facility provided by the Albertsons Foundation, and I will be here for the entire month of July. I'm going to shoot a video on what I'm doing here to help all the veterans and first responders that follow the channel so that we can help you with your brain injuries and your PTSD and help make you better. So let's get into what happened over in Norfolk. The funeral was held during Saturday morning. It was for a Portsmouth resident, and we don't have information on who the funeral was for, and that's important when we talk about what you can do to protect your church. Now, several individuals from the Portsmouth area were in attendance of that church. Now, gunfire erupted on 5th Street behind the Annunciation Greek Orthodox Cathedral in Norfolk. A man walking to his vehicle was shot and killed. Police say he was targeted by other individuals that were also from Portsmouth. Now, a second person was shot and later arrived at Norfolk General Hospital with life-threatening injuries. Now, bullets penetrated the church wall. One pierced the exterior of the church's Hellenic Center, where a summer day camp was occurring and was underway at that time. Now, children as young as kindergarten were playing basketball inside just below the path of that bullet. Now, no one inside the church was physically harmed, but the incident left children and staff shaken, obviously, right? Church leaders, including the parish council president, Reverend George Bassinas, expressed gratitude that no one inside was hit. It was by the grace of God that no one was hit inside. And we thank the Lord for protecting the children that were there at that time. Now, we know what happened. Let's break down why there is violence at funerals in the first place and what you can do to protect your church. Now, look, the first thing you do is, I don't know if the funeral was any part of the church, but I know churches obviously have a lot of funerals. So let's talk about funeral safety in general. So if a funeral involves people known to be involved in gangs or criminal activity, you have to understand the potential for retaliation. Now, I don't know what happened in this particular case. I am assuming it's gang related, but you know what happens when we assume. But if you have somebody involved in criminal activity, whether it's a gang or organized crime or anything like that, members of that group are now going to attend the funeral, and now rivals know where they're going to be, at what time, what location, and they have their pick. They shoot them all up. I can tell you, I was, most of you guys know, I was a SWAT sniper for many years. I was on a SWAT team for 20 years. I was deployed on several occasions as a SWAT team member or a sniper to overwatch funerals that involved gang members that we were worried about rivals coming to assault that particular funeral. And so it does happen. So if law enforcement contacts you and tells you that they're worried about that funeral at your church or what have you, because we know criminals go to church and we want them to. We're not going to keep them out of church because we want them to come to Christ and repent for their sins. Then you need to take that seriously. You should have your own security team. Every church, I won't say every church, churches should assess whether they need a security team or not. I personally think that you have to have some kind of security presence. But if you have a funeral of a known criminal or a known gang member, you're going to want security at your church to protect your church, and you're going to want to coordinate with local law enforcement. You want to ask for patrol presence during and immediately after the funerals, especially if that deceased has known criminal ties. If law enforcement can't cover it, then you're going to have to provide your own overwatch. And some of you have churches in very busy cities to where they may not be able to provide coverage for you. Now, as a gang sergeant, I was in charge of a gang unit. In fact, I was back in my normal studio. You would see my gang patch in the background. As gang sergeant, I did overwatch several funerals to make sure there was no violence. And we did catch people, rivals coming by, and we don't know what their intentions were, but we fly the flag, basically, and pull them over if we can, and do what have you. So you want to secure your children's areas from exterior threats. If right now everybody's got their VBS or Vacation Bible School going on right now, you're going to have to provide security for that. So if you're working security and you see that there's gunfire outside, you've got to keep that outside and keep people from coming into the church, the bad people. And then you're going to have people, hopefully the teachers know what to do to secure the children into a safe place. So the opposite side of the building where the gunfire is coming from. And, obviously call 911, but you're going to have to deal with the immediate threat of that shooting. I do think that churches should evaluate looking at some of the different ballistic barriers that are available if you can afford it for your church area, for the glass and for the children's areas. Just something to think about. Most important thing is you want to equip and train your safety ministry. A lot of people aren't training, like they have a safety ministry, but then they don't train. You have to train 4 hours a month. Now you're like, Keith, where do you come up with 4 hours a month? Well, there's no rule, there's no regulation, but I think it is important for you to do 4 hours. 4 hours, I think, is the minimum. And a lot of people spend that just on range time. You have to spend that on de-escalation, use of force, first aid, trauma, stuff like that. And then obviously active shooter shooting and stuff like that. So you've got a full plate. You can go back and look at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. Just look in the search bar, training matrix, and I have an entire lesson plan for you guys for a whole year. You want to use surveillance cameras strategically if you can provide that coverage. I keep mentioning that the basic security measures every church should have is a burglar alarm, a fire alarm, and a 4K video system. Now, the burglar alarm and fire alarm, those are mandatory. You have to have that for your church. If you have enough money after that, and I know money's tight for some churches, you need a 4K video system, not only for surveillance, but also to record criminal actions so cops can identify the perpetrators later on. It does help. Many times I've gone to a 4K video system and gone like, I know that guy. I've seen him before. He lives at like 123 Main Street. Let's go get him, and we go get him. It helps a ton. You do want to establish some kind of a quick notification system that if there is a shooting that occurs, that you can relay that to members inside the church, especially some of your churches are really large. You need a way to be able to, the best way is to get on a radio. I do like Tango Tango. It's an app on your phone. It works really well that people can just download. They charge nominal fee, but what I really like about it is it's got GPS tracking in it. So if I put out, I've got shots fired and I don't have time to put out where it is, everybody can see where I'm at on the map. And they can guess that that's probably where the shooting is happening, right? I like to look at everything through a biblical lens. I have not always been a good Christian. I've not been a good follower of Christ, especially when I was a cop. I was really jaded. I'm trying to change that, and I'm trying to expand my knowledge of the Bible. And so I'm going to talk about some things that I think are important in the Bible about what we're talking about right now. I would love in the comments to hear what you think about what I have to say about just the biblical lens of what we're going to talk about with this shooting. Leave a comment, let me know. Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 13 and 14. He says, "Therefore I stationed some of the people behind the lowest points of the wall at the exposed places, posting them by families with swords, spears, and bows. Don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives, and your homes." Now look, Nehemiah didn't say just pray and hope for the best. He armed and stationed protectors at the weak points because God's work required protection. Now, the church today isn't under siege from invading armies. Unless you're in Nigeria, then you are. But here in the United States, we're not. But we are vulnerable to violence of a fallen world. It's not unbiblical to post watchmen. It's obedience to God. Now, Psalm 82, verse 4, "Rescue the weak and the needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked." Now, children playing basketball under a bullet's path weren't lucky. Now, God's grace spared them. But next time, we may be called to act. If you're part of a church, you have a responsibility to stand in the gap and to protect the innocent, not out of fear, but out of faithfulness. Let me know what you think in the comments below. When we leave here, I want you to pray for the suspects that fired those shots, so they repent for their sins and they find Christ. And I want you to pray for the people at that church that had to experience what occurred. I also want you to remember your ABCs. Always be caring.